we created momentum where you could take and you could put monitoring spots on conveyors throughout your whole operation and feed it all back to one place.
Good morning and welcome to episode 47 of The Crownsman Show. This is a very special episode as today we are joined by Tom Palangio. He is the president of WipWare and he joins us once again in celebration of their 25th year anniversary. On May 18th, 2020, WipWare Incorporated celebrates 25 years in business. In this period, they have pioneered the technology and have literally wrote the book on blast fragmentation measurement, evidenced by this 315-page textbook that you see in the image below, published by Balcoma Press in 1996 at the Frag Blast 5 workshop in Montreal. Now, before we get started, we would like to thank all our sponsors. We are sponsored by PowerZone Equipment. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you need to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with PowerZone, and you can visit them at powerzone.com. We are also sponsored by Lamson. Lamson International is a third-generation family-owned and operated heavy lift and heavy haul construction company with branch offices located throughout North America, Canada, and Australia. Lamson International offers conventional crane rental, heavy transportation, project engineering, and customized rigging, steel, and timber mat rental, as well as marine and manufacturing services. They were founded in 1946 by Neil and Billy Jane Lamson. The company is in their 73rd year of doing business, and you can find out more at lamsoncrane.com. Now, let's get started with Tom Palangio and Jared Downey.
Welcome to the Crownsman Show, everybody. This is a very special episode for me because for a couple reasons. We're getting the honor of having WipWare, Tom Palangio from WipWare, celebrating 25 years of their company. And it's also a repeat guest on the show. Tom was one of our first guests. And so it's very special to be able to celebrate with him and their company, but also have a return guest at the Crownsman Show. So welcome, Tom. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Despite this recent issue with this COVID thing.
Yeah, well, you and I we planned this show a few months ago, I think, and we were certainly planning to do it in person, but everything changed rather rapidly on us.
That's right. Next week in Vancouver, we were scheduled.
It's supposed to be, yeah, it was CIM, and I want to kick off the show because people have seen the show, but of course our audience has grown since then, can you just give us that quick cap of what WipWare is as a company, and then I want to get into when you started the company. I know you were sort of first in the space, where you've traveled. I want to talk about the technology, the partnerships you've built. We're going to cover a lot today, but can you just give us that 1 minute of what WipWare offers?
Yeah, basically WipWare provides, data for management, data for decisions. A lot of things are very difficult to improve or even track in the absence of data. Our roots are in the explosives industry, and certainly it was really difficult to drill a pattern, put explosives in the hole, it goes boom, and then everybody looks at it and says, what do you think? And you assign it some kind of adjective. It was good or fair or poor, but really you need numbers. You need uniformity figures. It's hard to optimize the blast if in the absence of those figures. And when we started this, which was over 25 years ago, there really wasn't that much. How should I say? There wasn't any way to quantify it, short of maybe taking all the material, the muck pile, and passing it through sieves and screens and graded openings and trying to measure the fractions, which is crazy. I mean, you can't do that. A blast could be hundreds of thousands of tons of material that range in size from elephants down to dust. So, I mean, how are you going to measure that? But it's a pretty important parameter, and it's difficult to improve a blast if you can't benchmark it. So that was really the necessity. They say necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. So we looked for a way to be able to put some numbers on that, and I searched the world really. I was looking for some way of doing it. And I went to Waterloo University, and there was some professors there that had been doing some interesting things. Waterloo had a image enhancement program. They were taking actually satellite imagery, and they were taking other imagery, and they were enhancing it various ways. And it looked as if there might be a way that we could measure blast fragmentation using imagery, using photographs. And we tested it out. We proved the concept. We're talking over 25 years ago, and certainly
the technology must have been a bit different what you were working with back then.
Absolutely, we were using film cameras. And, you'd take a picture with a film camera, you'd develop it, you'd print it in an 8x10. And you'd put tracing paper over it, and you would trace the edge of each and every particle that you saw. And then you'd use various devices in that to compute the areas. I mean, it was crazy, but it was still more convenient than trying to sieve the blast.
Right, yeah, than physically moving everything.
Yeah. And, fortunately, computers did improve. Imaging technology improved. We were able to kind of automate that, and we kind of started off. One of the things, once we started to derive data, we could use that to validate the blast models that we were using within the explosives company I was with the Dupont company, and that was really a breakthrough for those days, for those times, Before that, blast optimization was considered to be, maybe reduce some drilling, reduce some explosives consumption, reduce some blasting costs, and yet nobody paid too much attention to the downstream effects. So yeah, you might save some drilling and some drill bits and some, accessories and explosives costs. But somewhere down the line, particularly in mining and aggregates, the mill throughput was suffering, but people never put these things together, And once we started to measure and compute sizes and then look at total production costs, a whole bunch of things emerged that there was really, really big savings involved if people would blast the right way. Every operation.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask Tom. So you were doing this with Waterloo, and then you were also working for Dupont at the time. So were you doing that as a representative of Dupont, or was this a separate thing that you were working on while you were with Dupont?
I was in a technical service group at Dupont, and Dupont was a great company to work for. They were always, looking for innovative ways of doing things. We developed it as a tool to use in-house at Dupont. And like I say, we used it for our own means in that. But it certainly, once you create a tool like that, people found that there was all kinds of other things that we could use it for. The explosives companies make a lot of ANFO, ammonium nitrate, and fuel oil, and the prills that the ANFO is made from, they tend to be a certain specific size and stuff like that. The imaging technology was even good for measuring the prill sizes. So it was kind of a
Oh, I see.
quality control thing, even in the production of Anfo.
Even in
Um,
those early days.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People didn't understand in order to get the proper oxygen balance that the prill had to be a certain size, because the when you put the fuel oil on it, it depends upon the surface area to get the ratio right. They take these prills and they convey them in maybe screw augers that like the types of augers that you use for grain and agricultural products.
Mm-hmm.
And if the auger was moving too fast, the prills would get beat down, and all of a sudden they wouldn't be the same size anymore. So, it enabled us to kind of measure the prill size, see what the maximum transit velocities were, things like that. Like it just, when you come up with a tool like this, you find all kinds of things that you never really thought of before. You've got a tool now.
Right. It's sort of an interesting journey that you took as well, because you moved on from Dupont and to start your own company with the technology. But then there was some sort of agreement that you ended up signing with them because they looked at it as competition, or what was that setup that you ended up with? It sort of actually ended up turning you into having global partners because of it.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I spent a lot of time with Dupont, actually, probably almost a third of my life with them. Great company to work for. Dupont became Explosive Technologies International, ETI, and the business started to change a little bit. It started to evolve. And in '95, I thought, maybe it's time for me to get out and start my own business. And I was an explosives. I was a blast consultant, and so I decided I would go and do that. Now, like I say, working for Dupont was a great education for me and a great opportunity. And actually, when I left, I probably had my name on quite a few different patents and that. And if one thing, the explosives company, just like any company like that, is kind of protective about technology. And they
Yes.
were a little concerned maybe that maybe I would divulge some of this information to their competitors or something like that. So we had an agreement that I wouldn't work in North America for about 3 years, and I was
Now,
good. I was good
all of
with that.
North America?
All in North America, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was good with that because it was a way that I could get started.
Right.
Blast consulting is global.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of some of the first jobs that started to roll in were in Panama. The U.S. Army was doing some work on the Panama Canal, and I went down there and did some consulting, and then from there I went to Peru. I worked for a company there, Southern Peru Copper and EXA, an explosive company there. And from there, I went to Chile and worked for Codelco and another explosive manufacturer, ENAX. And again, when I went there, I went there on a consulting basis. And when I went there, I would actually use as one of my tools was this WipFrag, this analysis method that I developed. Because Canadian law is such that whoever writes the software owns the technology. And so I got in touch with the professor and one of his students at the time and formed this company called WipWare in '95. After Chile, I went to South Africa and worked for NEXA. That's the Nuclear Energy Corporation in South Africa, and Sasol and a few other companies. And from there, I went to Australia and put in facilities at Hammersley Iron and a few other operations. By that time, the 3 years was up.
So that was all over 3 years, Tom, that you covered all that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to pack into 3 years, especially with a new technology and all those different different countries and continents.
Well, and that's the nature of explosives consulting. You know, when you go to a place, you're troubleshooting. You're going there. You're solving problems, and that's what I love to do. That's what I was doing for Dupont, and but ironically, at the end of the 3 years, there's a lot of people throughout the world that have acquired WipFrag products. So I've got an international business, but there's really no domestic business because I never worked in North America.
So I wanted to ask Tom. Sorry, I wanted to clarify something out of this. So you've got WipFrag that I'm sure it's continuing to evolve over those 3 years. Now, as you're doing that, is there more business being generated? So when you go from Peru to Chile to South Africa, is there still now, do you have partners now that you're leaving behind in Peru that you're still have an ongoing relationship with?
Yeah. No matter where I went, people said, gee, can we represent you here? In fact, one of the big things was the explosives manufacturers all wanted to represent our product because it was such a novel thing for the industry. I kind of shied away from doing that. I know the competitive nature of explosive industry, and I thought if I threw in with one, I'd alienate myself to all the others. So I always kept it away from that. But yeah, no, we had distributors and agents in every country, and we have them to this day.
Really? That you still carry on some of those original relationships that you built?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, so this 3 years is up, and you've kind of built an international network that you're saying you're still carrying on to this day. You come back to Canada, and then what do you do next after you've sort of gone from Dupont for, you said, a third of your career? You've toured the world, and now you're back to Canada. What comes next?
Well, so then I started to try and promote North American business and a little more domestic stuff. And I live in the country. I have 150 acres out in the bush. It
sounds like where I grew up.
It's really hard to carry on international business from a rural address like that. And so I pestered the powers that be, and they actually put high-speed internet into my house. Now, this is back in 95, when even the township I live in didn't have high speed. And I was kind of the poster boy for Bell Canada for a while. And you can see today even, if you want to start a business at all, you have to be connected. And those days it was really important because, people would send me imagery from Johannesburg, from anywhere in the world. And when we were on dial-up, it would take all night to download a bunch of images so you could analyze them and process them and get them back. So, these days it's a far cry from that. But that just shows the way the industry has evolved and the way things got better.
I think it's worth noting you love being out there so much. You weren't willing to trade simpler operations for being in a city.
Yes. Well,
but back in those, so in those times you were doing this. So how are you doing the analysis back then? Because, and we're going to get into some of this technology that you have now that's obviously evolved. But back then they actually had to send it. I know you still provide a service similar to that, but they had to send it. And did it go into a computer software back then, or was it actually manually assessed on what you were looking at?
Well, at one time, I think one of the big breakthroughs, and this is funny, and Sony came out with a camera called the Mavica, and it would actually write the data for the image onto a floppy disk. That was phenomenal. You know, you could take that floppy disk then, and you could put it in an envelope, and you could ship it. Okay, and then
yeah, right, yeah.
And then as the internet got better, and that, of course, you could transmit these images digitally. But yeah, it's even, we did a lot of video stuff early on. You know, video camera, footage.
Wow. It was. I just want to make sure I got my spot here. So I wanted to. Sorry, I'm just checking my place here. So you getting back, and like I said, we'll get into the technology here shortly. So from the time that you get back to Canada to the time where people are sending you the high-speed internet, when does the technology, WipFrag, MailFrag, Momentum, when does this stuff start to roll out in? I mean, the app world at this time, there wasn't. I don't even think there was a thing called an app until mid 2000s. So when did it essentially go all digital, and then when did those apps start rolling out? And then we'll dig into what those apps actually did. But what was sort of that timeline?
I guess people were buying the software to be able to take the picture and maybe do an analysis themselves. And then, and basically all the early stuff was pretty well all, blast fragmentation. Then people said, hey, we have material running on a conveyor, and we have to stop that conveyor once a day or whatever, and take wheelbarrows and shovels and take off a sample and send it to a lab somewhere. And we find out maybe 6-7 hours later that we're off spec. And, maybe we could use your technology. So we stop the conveyor, and instead of shoveling it all off and everything else, we'll just take a picture of it. And we know kind of quickly exactly where we are. And we said, we tell you what, you don't even have to stop the conveyor. Like if we provide adequate lighting and high enough shutter speed and everything else, we can freeze that material, and you don't even have to lose the production time now. We'll measure it on the fly. In fact, computers got fast enough that we won't even take a grab sample. We'll measure it continuously. So if all of a sudden your crusher loses its gap, or one of your screens, develops a break, we can tell you right away. We can give you an alarm, and that was phenomenal to the industry, because how many times did they operate with broken screens and contaminate stockpiles and things like this. Like construction aggregates is a very precise. The material really has to be on spec for it to pass a lot of different things. So that was a big breakthrough, and that was aggregates. Mineral processing, the mining industry is basically it's material handling, very sophisticated material handling, but it's making small rocks out of big rocks. You drill it and you blast it so it's small enough that you can get it into a truck, so you can get it into a crusher that reduces it again, and then you put it into another device. It could be a mill or whatever. You basically have to take that material from whatever size it is and reduce it down to 200 mesh, which is the consistency of flour, for you to be able to liberate whatever mineral you're after. So that whole process of comminution, at every stage, you can use our technology to measure it. We have a motto: you can't manage what you can't measure. So how do you improve that whole process if you can't measure at individual steps?
And quickly.
And quickly, yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
So that started to twig on, and there were a lot of early adapters. And when I look back, I got to think, I think you had Roy Slack on an interview.
We did, yeah.
Yeah. Roy's a pretty good fella, and he says that everybody embraces change, but nobody wants to change. And that's the way the industry was, you know. Nobody wanted to take a chance on some of this stuff. But we had some early adopters, and I'm trying to think, like, I remember Highland Valley Copper. We had a guy there by the name of Jack Rainey, and there was another fella, my gosh, his name escapes me right now. But they really had the vision to think that, you know, if we could save like 8%, we're talking about millions of dollars. Okay. So they adopted that technology. I remember the guy's name. It was Dr. Adrian Dance. And he became very famous using our technology, and he traveled all around the world to helping other operations optimize, modernize things. Yeah.
And did they take that on the early days? Like, was there any level of risk, or was it pretty proven by that time?
There was a level of risk. The mining industry tends to be a little bit like that. Everybody wants to be first to be second.
Yes,
you want the other guy to take the chance first, and if it works. Actually, the industry has really changed now. They've seen the advantages of trying to change things, and even if they fail, they consider it to be a success, because it just means there is another thing that doesn't work. Okay. In fact, some of the buzzwords are we'll get in there, we'll fail fast, or we'll prove it. And either way, we're ahead of the game, you know. And so that's kind of the way people are operating now. There's a whole new set of eyes looking at the whole process, and they're willing to embrace technology or whatever else in order to make it better.
I've noticed it. Yeah, I noticed it even on our show that at one time, like now we've done mining now and putting out that at one time mines they wouldn't even consider coming, like full operation, like large scale mines wouldn't even consider coming on our show. And now they're starting to even want to communicate their technology, ideas, their company values in these types of formats that you and I are. So you're seeing, even for me in the last couple of years, I've seen more of a shift.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I think in the past, maybe it was a lot more competitive. And if actually we ran into that too. We'd go into an operation, and I won't mention any names, but you go into an operation and you show them how they can save $2.5 million a year. And then you go to them and say, hey, how would you like to give us a testimonial? And they say, no.
Yeah, no.
Because it's a very competitive business. Now, I mean, if you find a way to improve things, why would you want to tell all your competitors? So you run into this. And yet I'm seeing in the mining industry now, people are being more open. They're sharing technology, which has got to be a good thing. It's got to be a good thing for everybody.
Well, I think it's going to be good also for as younger people get into the mining industry, as it becomes more public, people will understand it better. Usually when people understand things a little bit better, it's a little easier to trust. So there's a lot of advantages to it. And when you were doing this, again, you traveled around the world. Now you've developed the systems for the cranes, or for the cranes, for the conveyors. And was it a hard sell over the last 25 years, if you talk to 100 people, would half of them go for it, or was it a lot of work to get people? Talking about people want to change, or they want change, but they don't want to change themselves. Was that a major hurdle for the company in building it up?
No, not so much. Once you did have a proven application somewhere, the
Right.
word gets around. The industry is the sector, I guess. People are quite mobile. They move from operation to operation. If you get wind that somebody's doing something in a new way, it soon spreads, and everybody's willing to try it. It's ready to go.
Right.
So it spread fairly rapidly, and the other thing too that I should point out, that when you are successful in an application like this, the people that are the early adopters, the people that are smart enough to recognize the opportunities here, they tend to be quite upwardly mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And you phone 5 months later and you say, "Where's Charlie?" "Oh, well, he's promoted now. He's the vice president or something."
Right.
So
Yeah.
and these people, they move around, and they like to plug in the experience they've had at different operations. So that kind of grows on itself.
Yeah, they kind of either move up or out, right? Those types of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, I want to go. There's a few other things I want to talk to you about, because really you have frontiered our technology across an entire industry, but I don't want to kind of get through this interview without highlighting the technology itself and be able to show people some of it. So could you just quickly just kind of walk us through? You got the image analysis, conveyor analysis, vehicle. Can you just kind of walk us through first? We touched on it a bit, so just quickly the WipFrag and the mail frag technology, and then move on to momentum and solo, and just sort of give the audience an idea of what those are. We'll show pictures up on the screen for them, and so they can see it.
Yeah. So the early stuff was there was quite a manual component to it. You had the software, you took the pictures, you did the analysis, it gave you the results. When you start to get in more automated settings, it required a lot more automation and robotics and everything else, sensing devices. So you'd know when the truck was there, you'd know, various things. People come to us also with industry problems, and we love that. We love that. I have such a talented group here that they just love solving problems, And if you come to us and say, "Look, we're getting a lot of contamination, or we're getting this, or we're getting that, or we need something to at least warn us when we're off spec or off standard, or maybe even divert material that's waste instead of ore," we can do that. I mean, we have all kinds of techniques that we can employ. We do coloration, we do volumetrics, we do densities, we do a whole bunch of different things. So, but when you start coming up with a totally automated solution, and it has to operate in climates around the world. I mean, it could be 20 below, or it could be 40 above. It could be dusty. It could be, there's all kinds of things. So we have to build these things that'll meet all the electrical standards of these countries, and to withstand and operate under some pretty severe environments. And so this is why we start to create all these others. We created momentum, where you could take and you could put monitoring spots on conveyors throughout your whole operation, and feed it all back to one place. And that was an early unit. It was fairly easy. We introduced a solo unit, we called it, It's completely self-contained, and I could actually put it on a conveyor belt during coffee break. Okay, so like
Yeah,
all I had,
I was seeing the pictures. It looked
yeah,
very straightforward, actually.
like when you put the traditional technology and you had to run fiber optics maybe, and you had to have electricians and everything else. All we need with the solo unit is a electrical outlet, a
Mm,
power supply, and we can come in, shut that conveyor down, go have coffee. By the time you come back, it's operational. And again, we're getting to the point where we don't want to reduce people's production time.
right.
If you've got to be climbing over conveyors and doing all kinds of things, you're stopping their production. So we made solo so you wouldn't have to do that. And outfits, actually, they would buy it. They would buy one unit, and it's so portable. They'd monitor material at certain locations, and they'd move it somewhere else, and maybe even a different site. And then they found out that it's so useful that let's just leave it here and buy another one.
Right. Yeah.
and that's the way it evolves.
Yeah.
Once,
And they're attaching onto, I mean, you're attaching them onto vehicles and everything, right? Is reflex a different thing? Because I noticed the vehicle analysis, solo and momentum both go under the conveyor analysis. But on the vehicle analysis, there's momentum and reflex. Could you outline what reflex is?
yeah, reflex is a unit that we usually set up at a primary crusher.
Oh, okay.
So after the blast, the all the material from the blast gets loaded onto trucks. We had tried it at various times to kind of monitor the material when they were putting it on the truck on a shovel and that, but
Right.
it's a very difficult application there because it's dusty, it's dirty. The lighting is continuously variable. There's vibration. It's just not a very good spot to be, taking samples.
Mm-hmm.
We prefer instead that you load the material onto a truck. When that truck shows up at the primary crusher, we measure it as it ravels out of the truck. We not only see the surface of it, but we see each layer as it's going into the crusher. We know what that truck is, where that truck came from, and really when you want to do blast optimization, all you do is take all those trucks from that blast and merge it together, and theoretically you see every particle that was generated in that blast.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah.
the industry's never been able to do that before. That was just, that's the Cadillac. That's the one you really want. Today, the explosives has come such a long way. So there's so much innovation in not only explosives technology, but timing, detonators. There's so many things you can do. But some of the changes are so subtle that this is the best way to capture it, to actually see if you're improving the blast or not. So that's reflex. We've put that out for quite a while. That can also be used. The similar technology like that can be used if you're loading rail cars or you're loading ships. It just goes on and on because it's so useful.
I was going to actually ask you, Tom. You mentioned Highland Valley Copper, but there's also smaller aggregate operations and mining operations. Is there, when you get into something, because you do, I noticed with WipFrag and MailFrag, there is that premise still of your company where they're sending you the information and you're diagnosing what they have going on. Is it a cost thing for companies, whereas someone like a Highland Valley Copper they're going to use you can correct me for saying it wrong, but your top tier technology or a smaller operation, it's better for them to send it to you for you to analyze it? Is that so? Is there sort of a split there, or does everybody kind of use all of it?
Um, some of the smaller operations, like say aggregate operations, some of them are family owned. Some of them are pretty small,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and really it's a big capital investment maybe to get some big automated machine, especially when you don't know the full benefits yet.
Right. Yeah.
So for those people, we offer them options. Yeah, you can take some pictures, send them to us. We'll analyze them for you. We'll send you the results back within 48 hours, and you can decide for yourself. How to do it. Um, there's there's other people, or actually even that. Once people see the value of the data, then they'll say, hey, this is really good and I need this all the time, and they'll go ahead and they'll put in a smaller system.
Right.
We have vertex units now, we call them, and they're very small, self-contained, and
Oh yeah.
they'll key in on just one key performance indicator.
Right.
Maybe all they'll measure is top size, and that's ideal for some people.
Mm-hmm.
If top size is your big issue, then we can do it.
It's yeah. So you really can. I mean, it's going from all these way up to the Highland Valley Coppers down to these little aggregate operations, and for someone that's doing it, I want to circle back into. I mean, 25 years for a company to make it over 5 years is a success story. 25 years, and now I know your son. I believe he's the acting president. Am I getting that right?
Yes, pretty well.
Yeah, of the company, and you know you have to be able to develop partnerships, and we touch on it quite often in shows. But what is it? You have the technology, so you have the capabilities, and you had a service, but there's more to it than that, especially in an industry that's maybe it's shifted a bit, but over the years has been second to change, not first. How have you approached that? How do you go from Dupont? You have to go to all these other countries as a consultant. Obviously, you'd had a background in it, so you'd made your teeth already. But to develop those relationships, come back, build a business in Canada, get Bell to then put high-speed internet into your 150 acres. All this type of stuff. How did you approach that? Is it the one thing? Is it natural? Did you learn it? Did you make enough mistakes that you learned how to do it better? Sort of what's that journey been over 25 years of doing it?
Yeah, you learn it. When I started off, I wasn't that savvy when it comes to sales and promotion and stuff like that. Um, I I I like to establish relationships between people. Sometimes you meet somebody and you just know that you want to do business with that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the early stuff was like that. It was relationships. Um, as you move on in that, you find that a lot of people want to represent you um, because the product that they're handling right now integrates so well with the product you have. It's a good fit. And we've established a lot of real good long-term relationships with companies that do that. So that's a good marriage usually. Um, yeah, that's pretty well what we do now. We have representatives on every continent. Some of them are pretty big organizations, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw the list.
yeah, they do a lot of good things, and we're really pleased to be working with them. And filling in some part of what they do. It's a challenge, to market a product globally. I mean, there's barriers of culture and language and everything else. Like, you need good people in good places. because that's the other issue too. We just don't like to develop and sell a product. We like to maintain it. You know, we have to, there's a learning curve. I mean, I just can't all of a sudden throw a piece of technology at you and expect that you're going to be able to, you know, get the most out of it. And so, yeah, no, it's a big team effort. And again, the group I have is really, really great. They're all young guys, and when you're young, you can do anything, you know. So
you need wisdom though of experience, and you know, when did you have the vision of where you would go? And again, you sent us a picture, and we'll show that up on the screen of the companies you've worked with, and some of them are absolutely fantastic companies, and some of the customers you've had. And did you have that vision? Did it start as a love for developing these systems, or as a demand from when you were working for Dupont? And then as you developed, you just kept wanting to, you know, it's just the problem solving. What sort of drove the innovation? Because you certainly didn't stop at developing WipFrag and letting that ride. You've kept developing and still releasing new products. And I see on your website now it's available on the Android as well as, you know, so it's continual development. Where does that come from for you?
well, I guess when the latter years when I was with Dupont and ETI, I was basically in troubleshooting and problem solving, and I like that. You like helping people, you like solving problems, and you like to go in with an outside set of eyes and kind of look and not only identify problems but get down to root causes. You know, ask yourself why 6 or 7 times and get right down to the root of it. And you know, basically, we enjoy doing that. It really gives me a lot of satisfaction. You know, if somebody has a problem, they bring it to us and we're able to solve it. There's nothing better than that for us, you know. So
you I think I heard a little pop in my ear. I'm just making sure I still have sound and everything. You know, and I was interesting because I was talking to you, and you know, just sort of as we're coming to a close on this, and you know, the last few minutes, you and your son were on the phone, Thomas, in the call, and you know, for one, I could hear the admiration of you in his voice talking. Just sometimes you can just hear it, even over the phone, and it just strikes me of your ability to build a company out, still have family involved, still have these partners that you've had for years, and it's really a testament to what you do. And I didn't quite understand. I didn't quite understand you until he actually said we should tell some of your stories about the traveling around the world. And I remember when we were at CIM and you were one of our first guests, and seeing this, that you were willing to come on the show, and you know, out of all the people that, you know, a lot of people said no, they wouldn't come on our show, and it says something about someone when they don't really know what it is, but they're willing to give it a shot. And I think it was Rory, well, I know it was Rory that was talking to you, and we'd never met. We met when you sat down in the chair and we did the interview. And even that, though, that you're at CIM, they put on the big trade show and conference, and now you've got these group of young guys with cameras and lights everywhere, and we're doing this show. How do you judge? How did you judge, you know, that Rory is worth talking to, and you're going to come, and now almost 2 years later, you're sitting there celebrating 25 years with us. You know, is that a judgment call? Do you know, even if you don't really know who the person is, and how do you judge that? I'm curious, even for myself, as I go through my career.
I've never been averse to risk. I'm willing to try anything, you know, within reason. You know, I suppose I've done so much. I think I told you at that first interview, I'm a disruptor. Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you know, I look at the way people are doing things, and you know, I wonder why they're doing it that way, and if there's a better way to do it, let's do it. And to hell with tradition, and it can get you into some trouble now and then, but then again, you know, you can make some headway. And like I say, from the product, from its kind of humble beginnings, I mean, today we've got people that are acquiring images using drones.
Right. Yeah, I saw that.
You know, like, and you know, we took a piece of software that, you know, we were selling throughout the world, and all kinds of repeat customers and everything else, and we've enabled people now. We've actually taken the software and we've put it on your phone or your
Hmm.
iPad, okay? And not only Apple products, but we've just introduced it on the Android. So I know for sure that you're carrying a cell phone, and our
Oh, there are a
technology
couple.
yeah, our technology could be on your phone. You know, like, how cool is that? So, you know, if you're in a business where now and then you could benefit from, you know, a size measurement, um, like, why wouldn't you have that? Because you're already carrying the device around. It's a minimal cost, and you've got the convenience now. You can take a picture and you can do an analysis right there, and bang, you've got a result. So we've
Yeah.
empowered people, and hopefully, you know, people are going to say, "Hey, geez, how did I ever do without this?" You know, and that'll grow. That'll keep germinating.
You know, and I have a question about that though. Is when you originally developed this, obviously there was a demand. Has most of the innovation that you've done been off of problem solving, and that you develop it as a result of that, or is it pretty equal with taking, you know, R&D and taking that initiative to go, we think people will want this? Is there sort of a balancing act that you've done with that, or is it sort of one side or the other?
It's a bit of a balancing act, but mostly, like I say, people will come to us and say, "Hey, you know, I just bought your product, and it really works good. And can you make it do this? Or you can make it do that." And we really listen to our clients. You know, so if somebody comes up with something that, well, we discuss it, yeah, we can implement that. So let's do it. Keep
Hmm.
making the product better all the time. I mean, that's the nature of it. You know. And
Yeah.
our clients give us all kinds of great ideas, and you know, our R&D budget is just unbelievable. Every new thing that comes along, we look at it, we see if there's a potential, we see if
Yeah.
it'll, you know, improve our products. We don't stand still. Actually, if we have any fault, it's we don't say enough about our product. We don't advertise that much. We've kind of depended on word of mouth. Um, we have a success rate, like, uh, most of the people that buy our products, 63% of them have bought them in the past. Okay,
Mm, that's
and
a huge rate.
yeah, and people come to us, and they're interested in the product, and we start talking to them, and they say, "Oh yeah, well that's like," and they'll mention a competitive product. And we say, "Oh, so you know about that?" "Yeah, well, you know, well, why are you looking at us?" "Well, it doesn't work so well." Because we've been at this for 25 years and we pioneered it, and everything we did wasn't successful by any means. You know, we discarded a lot of things. We used to do, oh, I won't even start telling you the things that we did that didn't work out. But we've been
Oh,
through
come
that.
on. There must be one that stands out.
We've been through that process, you know, and a lot of people, I think, figure, "Oh, geez, it's to take a picture and we'll go through some iterations and, you know, we can do it." It's hard to get validation. It's hard to get something that really works well, and it it irks me in a way. We will work with anybody. If you think that you have a use for our product, don't try and reinvent it again. Come to us.
Yeah.
We'll work with you, because it really hurts you and it really hurts us if you think that you can do what we do and you come up with an inferior product, and I've seen this time and time again, people think, oh, well, I can do that. They come up with something and it's inferior, and people say, oh, I tried that image analysis stuff from so-and-so and it doesn't work. So they figure all of it's garbage.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? I'd rather them come to us and we'll work with them. And at least you'll have the best and it won't cost you that much. And we do that with companies now. You know, companies will come to us and say, look, we'll buy it and we'll rebrand it and we'll call it something else, but it's yours.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good. That's good. We like that. That's great.
It's an interesting thing that you said, actually. So even if they're rebranding, at least you know that the technology has a quality, the quality behind it. So that the quality, it actually, in the long run, it actually does better for you, that people trust the technology itself. It's an interesting point of view. Yeah. You know, I wanted to, you know, I'm sure you've had people that have been with you a long time, Tom, and as we wrap up the interview, I wondered if there's anybody, you know, and I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but well, I guess I do because I am. But I just wondered if there's anybody you want to mention after 25 years, because I mean, of course, you made it pretty clear with the people you've worked with, and that it hasn't just been you. And I'd like to give you a chance to do that as we wrap up the show.
Yeah, well, for sure. It's as I mentioned, we've got quite a team here, and my son graduated. He's a mining engineer, and he had been offered jobs at a lot of different mining operations and that throughout the country. He preferred to stay with me, and he's been running it. And let me tell you, technology, advances in imaging and computers and all that, that's a young man's game. It's not for us old guys. And he's taken the company and he runs the development. He hires the programmers. He takes care of the distributors. He's the leadership behind the organization these days. And we're pretty proud of him.
Yeah.
And like I say, he's assembled quite a good team, and there's not too much that they can't do. So we've been lucky that way.
That's good to hear, and I'm glad, you know, you have that relationship to be able to, you know, sort of get it on to the next generation. It's pretty amazing. And you know, I wanted to say, I told you, I don't think I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but I mentioned it off air. My wife bought me this hat, and I've been saving it for you for your 25 years to celebrate. She bought it for me in Ottawa from a place called, I got to get this right, it's the Saucy Milliner. And then you said, as soon as you said you were coming on the show, I put the bow on the box, and I have not used this hat. And because it was, you were one of our first guests, and now to have you back on 2 years later and be just a little sliver to celebrate 25 years, and it is an accomplishment worth celebrating, certainly. So thanks for coming on, Tom. It's been good for me because I've actually got to understand the company much better through prepping for this interview, and it's pretty amazing stuff that you're doing. It really is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And had I known you were going to wear your hat, I would have worn mine. And
I know, that's what I thought.
And they wouldn't get all this glare off the top of my head.
Well, people probably think I'm trying to hide glare. I just want to prove, no, I still got. Okay, Tom, we're going to wrap up the show, and thanks a lot for coming on again. And I'm just going to do a quick sign off to the camera, and we'll talk off air.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Gowdy will sign us off with, you know, how you can stay connected and support the show. We Tom's coming on here because you're watching, and we just appreciate your support, especially through this is being filmed during COVID, and so every single person that watches us, we very much appreciate it. Thanks, and we've got plenty more episodes coming at you, and we look forward to it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a dedicated fan and would like to help support the production of The Crownsman Show, then please head on over to crownsman.com/donations. We have set up 2 initial donation options, the $5 monthly subscription and the support heavy industry one-time donation. These are all through PayPal. Again, that's crownsman.com/donations. Thank you for all your support, and we will see you on the next episode.